everybody, welcome back. So, we got cut off a little bit at the end there, but this was our finished coffee cake, okay? Panned up and ready to go. I'm gonna put this one in the oven. I'm just gonna put it on top of a parchment lined pan because it is, a pan that's not sealed at the bottom, two pieces. So I just wanna make sure nothing leaks out of the bottom. So I'm gonna put this one in the oven. And like I said, about 25 minutes. After that 25 minutes, voila, we have this. Obviously I baked this ahead, and I already pulled the piece out of the pan, and I cut a slice for us, but you can see how nice and light and fluffy that is, right, baked through. A little bit of gooiness here from our sugar, but that is going to be delicious. So try that at home if you can. If you don't have sour cream, you could always just substitute milk for heavy cream and give it a try. All right. We're going to switch right into our breadsticks. So this is a complete opposite procedure that we're going to have here as opposed to what we just did. So when I talked about not developing gluten and going really quickly and using a paddle attachment and the creaming method and all that, we're scratching all that for this, okay? So the biggest part of this, and this is a quick bread, okay? It doesn't require fermentation time and so forth. Warm water into the yeast, okay? Very important. Let it mix up a little bit. So that's active, dry yeast, okay? So I need to let that activate. Yeast feeds on sugar, okay? So I'm gonna take a little bit of sugar and add that in there. And that's gonna help this yeast to activate. So warm water and a little bit of sugar. You don't even have to measure it out, just a little sprinkle. That's what the yeast feeds on. And what we'll see happen is this will start to foam up in a minute or two. Okay, so while we're waiting for that, we're gonna look at something else I have. And this is called a starter, okay? A bread starter, a sour starter. And basically what this is you can use this in place of or in addition to yeast, because yeast serves two purposes, right? It creates rising, leavening agent, but it also has flavor. When I build my own, this is just flour and water. That's all it is. This one here is about 1.5 years old, and they can be 10, 20 years old as long as you keep them alive. You have to feed them. By feeding them means you add a little bit more clean, cold water and a little bit of flour, and you keep mixing that in and let it sit in your refrigerator, and it will get a very naturally tart flavor. It's developing its natural yeast. Okay, so this is about as natural as you can get using a starter. Now I'm not going to use this in the breadsticks because breadsticks really don't, you really don't want that tart flavor. But certainly for a sourdough, or even if I was making a French bread or an Italian bread, just a little hint of that. This isn't a super sour starter, but again, that's natural yeast. So I just wanted to point that out as long as we were talking about doughs and breads and things like that. So again, flour, pretty big part of making any kind of bread. In this case, we do want gluten content. So you can use all-purpose, which is kind of in the middle, right? We talked about with the coffee cake and using pastry flour or cake flour, okay, that's low in gluten content, those two. All-purpose is in the middle, and then you have bread flour on the high end. So you could use bread flour, you could use the all-purpose. Either or is fine, but you wouldn't use pastry flour for this, okay? So not a lot of ingredients in the breadsticks, all right? It's a pretty simple thing. So we have our yeast, we're letting that activate. We have our flour, a little bit of salt, right? Some olive oil in this particular recipe that we're gonna use. And then we'll put some seasoning on top of the breadstick when we're about to bake it, okay? And you can use lots of different things for that as well. You can see it starting to activate, and that's kind of cool, right? You see the almost look like little mushroom clouds that are being created there, and you see them coming up as we speak, okay? That's how you know that your yeast is live and it's good, okay? So if you've had that yeast in your refrigerator for a long period of time and you've used warm water and sugar and it's still not doing this, then that yeast is probably dead. If it's dead, then it's not gonna do what we need it to do. Yeast is a living organism, right? And we need it, again, to create that rising, that leavening, and also give us flavor. When you bite into bread, you're always tasting yeast at some level or another. Some more strong, than others, but you're always tasting yeast, right? So it serves two purposes, leavening and flavor. All right, so with this, I don't have to really be very careful how I'm mixing things together. The big thing is just letting my yeast activate. So now I'm gonna use my dough hook, right, for mixing this. We're gonna put that in there, into our mixer. We're gonna put our flour into our mixer. And the recipe that I'm gonna post for you is gonna tell you to put some of the flour in and then start to mix and then add the rest of it. Well, I've been using this recipe for a while, so it's a pretty proven recipe. So I know that I'm gonna add all of that flour in and I'm ready to go, okay? I'm gonna add my olive oil. Make sure we get it all. And then my 10 ounces of warm water are right in with yeast, okay? Again, see how nice and frothy it's gotten? Even as we've gone away and come back, you can see it's gotten even more frothy, almost foamy. And it takes a minute or two, maybe 3. If it's not at least starting this process within a minute or so, then again, your yeast is probably dead, or you didn't have nice warm water, or you forgot to sprinkle a little sugar in there. Okay, any of those things being omitted can prevent yeast from growing. How warm should your water be? About as hot as your tap can get in a normal tap, unless you have one of those taps that's so hot that it burns your fingers when you stick your finger underneath it. You want it about as warm as a tap water is going to get. In the range of 90 degrees or so is good if you want to use a thermometer and check it. But like I said, most taps are going to be about that when they come out. So don't measure it and let it sit there and then go back to it, because then you're going to end up having the water too cool. So now that I'm nice and foamy, I'm going to pour that in there. Again, make sure I get it all. Use my trusty rubber spatula. And then I'm just going to turn it on and let her mix. Okay? So in this case, I'm not worried about over mixing. I actually want to mix a lot. And while that's happening, we're going to go over here because I previously made some dough for us. Okay? And you can see how nice and smooth and elastic that is. It's not sticky. It's very pliable, almost like a Play-Doh, not quite. Okay? And to roll out my breadsticks, I actually do not want flour on my table. I actually want a little water. You take just a couple splashes of water and rub that into my table, because I want to be able to grip the flour, or the dough, excuse me, be able to grip the dough so I can roll it out. So what I want to do is be as even as possible. You can use a scale and weigh those out, or you can just divide it up evenly. And when you have it, okay, again, I'm gripping, so no flour, right onto the table. And what I'm doing is, kind of with the pressure here, not quite the palm of my hands, but at the base of my fingers, I'm putting just enough pressure, not pushing down, not shoving down, just kind of the natural pressure of my hands, and I'm rolling it out. And also notice how I'm going from all angles of this strip, okay? Because if you just leave your hands in one place, what's going to happen? You're going to get what I like to call the pregnant snake. You're going to have a really fat piece in here, and it's going to be skinny on the ends. That's not going to work out too well. So then we're going to take it, and we're just going to twist it, okay? And right onto a parchment-lined sheet tray, okay? So I'll do another one for you real fast. Again, if your table gets slippery and it's sliding and not rolling, it's got to stick a little bit in order to do that. Grab a little water, again, just flick it and rub it into the table, and that'll give you some grip so it doesn't slide on you. It's important to make sure that they're pretty equal in size, because if they're not, they're going to bake differently. So if I've got one really big breadstick and one really small breadstick and 3 that are medium size, they're all going to bake different. So 2 are going to be done great, one's going to be underdone, and the other one's going to be overdone. Okay? And then just take it and twist it. That's all you got to do. Press it down, and you're ready to go. And again, that's a good way to know if your texture is good on your breadstick, or on your bread dough for now, is because if it stays and doesn't unroll really easily, you know you got a good texture for the breadstick. Okay? Now again, for these, this is a simple dough. So what we're not doing is we're really not fermenting. And as we've gone here, and I've been talking and rolling it out, you can see our other dough that we just made. Boom, ready to go. Good texture, just sticky enough so it'll kind of grip the table, but not so sticky that it sticks to my hands, okay? So we're gonna let that rest. This one here I let rest for about 10 minutes or so, 10 to 15 minutes before I rolled it. But again, in general, this is a very quick type of bread, not like a French bread, a baguette, Italian bread, something like that, rolls that you have to ferment or proof or both. Okay, and the difference is fermenting means at room temperature you're letting it rest. Okay, and proofing means you're doing it at a little bit higher of a temperature with some humidity added to it. So we have in baking, in bake shops, we have what are called proof boxes. So in those proof boxes, we have about a 70–80% humidity level inside of them, and our temperature is about 10 degrees or so above room temperature. Okay, just enough to get some proofing, and what that means is it's letting the dough start to rise and expand, and yet it's not browning or caramelizing at all. So it's still staying raw, but it's expanding and rising and giving that lighter texture inside when it's finished. And I go straight from a proof box right into the oven. There is no wait after you proof it. You can't wait on it. Now before I proof it, I can ferment it. I can leave it in the refrigerator, and what we call that is called retarding it, meaning it slows the growth by putting it in the refrigerator. So instead of a few hours, I can leave it overnight and it's going to be okay and still grow and be nice. Okay, so my breadsticks I got, but it's not going to grow too fast. Okay, so that's another method. You don't really need to know those things in the beginner level. Just wanted to point it out. Again, this is about as simple as it gets in making bread. All right, and I'm just going to brush the tops with a little egg wash. What is egg wash? It's simply a whole egg that you whisk together with some water. Okay, so one egg, about a quarter cup of water or so, and then that's going to allow ingredients to stick on top. So I did a few different things. I have some garlic salt. Okay, I've got some cinnamon sugar. Okay, you want to put sugar in with the cinnamon because cinnamon itself will cake up and not spread out too well. All right, and then I've got some sesame seeds. So I could do sesame seeds, or I could do a combination. I could do a little garlic salt, and I use sea salt for this, a little bit coarser of a grind, and then put a little bit of sesame seeds right on top of that. This is going to go into a 375-degree oven for about 10 minutes. They're going to bake pretty quickly, and then when they're all done, voila, magic. So you have some nice golden brown breadsticks. These ones I just did the sesame seeds on. You break that open, right? Nice and tender and fluffy on the inside, and ready to eat. They're really delicious when they're warm, just coming out of the oven. So that's going to wrap this up. Again, try this at home. Pretty simple. You should have most of these ingredients. Maybe the yeast you don't have, you have to go get some, or order it through Instacart, whatever, right? But give it a try. Same with the coffee cake. Give that one a try too. Chef Don, we'll see you soon.